Okay. For attending. I'm just going to hand over to Catherine just to share any apologies, and then I will hand over to Catherine for nominations for chair and vice chair. So Catherine, have we had any apologies?
Yes, we've had an apology from Shahid, and Shira will be joining us later because she has an appointment at the moment.
Okay, thank you, and perfect. So Catherine, I'm going to pass over to you. So I'm just changing the order slightly on the agenda, everybody. So I've done welcome apologies item 1, but I think it's prudent that maybe we move election of chair and vice chair to item 2, because then we can carry on. So Catherine, over to you.
I haven't had any nominations for chair and vice chair. So first of all, I'd just like to check with Stephen and Beth if you are in a position and would like to be nominated again. Would you be in a position to take that up if you were nominated?
I'm happy to chair again, but I'm not precious. If anybody else would like to take over for experience, or yeah, I'm totally not precious.
Right. Beth?
Well, I'm having technical trouble with my cold fingers. Yes, I am too. But again, as Stephen said, we're not precious.
Right. Okay. Would anybody like to nominate Stephen for chair?
I will. Oh.
And second? And Beth? Would anybody like to nominate Beth?
I will. Thank you. I will.
Fantastic. Congratulations, Stephen and Beth, for being nominated again. And thank you. We do appreciate all that you do, because it is quite a significant thing that you do, and we really, really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for nominating Beth and myself. Angie, I'm loving your background. It's my oldest and my 2 boys' birthday on the 1st of December, so we have a.
It's not very far off, and actually that is from last year. It's my friend's house. It's her tree. She sent me the photo, so I said, I want your background. I want it for my background, so she sent it to me.
and why not? And why not? Okay, so if we
I
move
wondered where Andrew was, where it was light and the trees had got leaves on.
Yeah, managed to get away before another travel ban. If we move on to item 2, minutes from our previous meeting, so we just need to confirm that the minutes are a true account of our meeting on the 14th of June. Seems ages away. I hope you've all had an opportunity to read the papers. Emily?
Yeah, I just spotted an error, Stephen, that I didn't spot when Catherine sent me the draft, which is that it says the minutes of the last meeting held on the 9th of November 2021, and of course it should read the 1st of March 2021. I haven't actually printed the minutes out in front of me, but I think it was on page 1 of the minutes. It just refers to the last meeting as being in November when, yes, it's under item 2 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so Catherine, when you get an opportunity, if you wouldn't mind amending that for us.
Yeah,
thank you. I didn't see anything, and as always, the minutes were, I felt very comprehensive, and I believe matters arising are going to come up throughout the meeting. So can I just have somebody just to propose that the minutes were a true account of our last meeting? That's Beth. And somebody just to second them, please.
I will. I was at the meeting.
Thank you. Philippa, was that Philippa? Yeah. Thank you very much. Item 3, matters arising, we'll take throughout the throughout the meeting, because I think a lot of them will come up throughout the meeting. But if there is any,
could I just suggest, sorry, that I'm not sure whether membership will come up during the meeting, but I think it might be. I think we need to make sure we talk about that. So I don't know if you'd like to do that under matters arising, or
that's fine. That was going to be the next thing, but I'm going to hand over to Emily just to share a little bit about membership with everyone.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. I mean, really, I'll hand over to Catherine in a minute because she's been doing lots of great work on trying to recruit members. But just to say, I think we've let you know via email, but since the last meeting in the summer, we've had 2 members resign, and that's Christine Morgan. She resigned in August, and she was obviously in Group A, Christian denominations other than C of E. And Lisa Cornwell also resigned in June from the C of E group. So we've actually now got 6 vacancies on the SACRE. So we've got 2 for Group A, Christian denominations other than the Church of England. Buddhism is a long-standing vacancy we've had. We've got 1 vacancy for a C of E member. And then in Group C for teachers, teaching unions and educationalists, we've got 2 vacancies. So Catherine's been doing some really great work on trying to recruit to those, and she's been having lots of imaginative ideas about who we could contact. And she has had success with 1 person who we're really happy is very likely to want to join the SACRE. But I'll just hand over to Catherine to talk about who she's been contacting and what other ideas she's got about how we could recruit people.
Thank you, Emily. Yeah, obviously the best way to recruit is personal invitation, because if you send an email out, it just doesn't really get anywhere. Been really fortunate in that I do know several of the church leaders. So initially I've gone through Churches Together in Wokingham, and I know that that's been forwarded to all of the churches. But after speaking with Emily, I think it would be a good idea to follow those up with the people that I know there, to see whether we can encourage somebody to come forward. But also I contacted an organisation called Soulscape, which is an organisation that works with Wokingham schools. And Nick has agreed to come on to SACRE. In fact, he's jumped at the opportunity. So it's not a question of twisting his arm. He's really, really keen to join us. So we'll be talking to him about how to do that. I think you'll be in category C, did you say, Emily?
Yeah, Nick said that he'd prefer to not join as a faith representative, but as an educationalist. So we just need to, he's got a board of trustees for Soulscape. So we thought we could ask the trustees to nominate him if that's acceptable to SACRE members. Because as Catherine says, he's really keen to join, and we think he'd be a real asset to the SACRE. So if everyone's happy for that, we can go ahead and organise that.
Sorry, your microphone's not on, Stephen.
I need one of those or you need those t-shirts, don't we? That we point to the mics. Your mic's on you. Emily, sorry, before we sort of, and I'm sure we'll all say yes, I just know Beth and Catherine. So Beth first, you got a question. Beth, you're on mute.
You'd think I'd learn, wouldn't you? We need to be careful that we're not too Wokingham centric, because Wokingham Churches Together doesn't cover either Woodley or Early. And so we need to be very aware of that. I've asked a couple of people who are Free Church, a Baptist and a Methodist, if they'd be interested in joining us in Group A. I'm waiting for an answer. One of the people I've asked, either he or his wife would be very capable of doing it. And the other one, the Baptist, would too. I just need to get them to understand that we don't meet every week.
Thank you. Catherine?
Yeah, I'm assuming other Catherine. Do you mean Nick Hudson?
No.
Which Nick?
It's Nick Barnett, I think,
Nick
is it?
Barnett.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you. Nick Barnett.
Okay.
Yeah.
From
Sorry,
Sorry.
is he a trustee at Soulscape then? So I know another Nick who's trustee at Soulscape, who's also a Baptist minister who used to be a secondary school teacher. So I'm just a bit, which Nick?
So Nick Barnett, he actually delivers the service, and he did say that to be nominated, it would be a trustee, obviously, and the trustee is also a leader of the church. So that would be tick lots of boxes, really.
before we sort of
Sorry, Stephen, I was just going to add to what Catherine said. As Catherine said, really personal contact is by far the most effective way of recruiting SACRE members. So we'd like to appeal to you all for your help. So thanks very much, Beth, for your efforts. But if anyone else has any contacts who you think would be good to fill any of those vacancies, obviously for teachers, we're advertising in our education newsletter and we're mentioning at any teacher meetings or teacher training that we do for RE. But yeah, and we'll carry on with our efforts. Catherine had another really good idea of, we have an email that goes out to all WBC employees every week. And obviously that's quite a large group of employees. So Catherine thought that we could also advertise for members through that as well, perhaps. So she's going to explore that. Thanks,
Yeah.
Steve.
And we're just searching the website for different faith groups. Some of them, it's just really hard to find an email address, where we can contact, like a group for Buddhism or, those other faiths, really. So any help that we can get where somebody can give us an email address or a contact name or something would be really, really helpful. So if there's anybody watching this now, in fact, if you're not already part of this committee, please do get in contact with us.
Our 18 million viewers.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, unless anybody has any objections, my advice is that we formally propose that Nick joins us, so then Emily and Catherine can go back to Nick and he can be nominated by his board of trustees. If anybody does have any objections to that, then please do unmute yourself or just put something in the chat box. And I was just going to reiterate what Catherine and Emily have said in terms of that personal invitation. It really is the best way to get people on board, and also personal recommendation, because you all know some amazing people that I think would be amazing. And when I compare us to the other Berkshire SACREs, we do normally have, we're normally full, and we, in my opinion, and I constantly say this when I'm at hub meetings, I think we are the best SACRE across the entire country. Catherine, you still have your hand up. Do you have another question? No. Okay. Emily and Catherine, is there anything else you'd like to add on membership?
Not from me, thank you.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, and thank you both for all your efforts and your hard work, because it's not the easiest thing, especially cold calling. So again, just if anybody does have those personal connections, please do get in contact with them and let Emily and Catherine know. It would be great to get back to full membership again. Okay, so item 4, autumn term 20.
Did we propose, Nick? Did we agree?
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Yep. Brilliant. Thank you.
Item 4, autumn term 2021. How are things for Wokingham schools? I'm guessing this might be a bit of a tag team between Emily and Angela, so I'll hand over to you both again.
Thanks, Stephen. I think I was going to take this item. So I'm always conscious when I do this update that there are lots of colleagues based in schools in the meeting who could do this much better than me. So please do add anything that I miss. But just to give you a summary of how things have been and how things are currently for schools in Wokingham this term. So whereas there was government requirements during the summer term for how schools should be working in a COVID secure way with children in bubbles, for example, there have been none of those kinds of requirements this term, which although some have kept some of the things they were doing last year, like staggered start and end times, for example. In a way, that's made things more tricky for school leaders, because they've had to kind of negotiate with parents on things such as, if there's someone who's tested positive in the family, then the other children, you know, please don't send them into school. But they haven't actually had government backing for that. So they've had to negotiate with parents. So the LA has been trying to support schools to do that negotiating with parents. So before half term, we had very high rates in schools, especially in secondary schools, and errors in the testing at the lab were contributing to that. So we had quite a lot of false negatives that were contributing to that high rate of infection. Then we had half term, which helped to cut the infection rates, but they have soon started to rise again since half term. And actually now, because most secondary pupils are vaccinated, the rates are now higher in primary schools. So there is local Wokingham, in fact, it's for the whole of the Berkshire West area in terms of public health. There is public health and local authority guidance for schools for the rest of this term, which includes measures like secondary school staff and students wearing masks in communal areas, regular lateral flow testing for staff and for secondary pupils, trying to avoid year groups mixing, thinking about risk assessments, so particularly for Christmas activities, thinking about how to do those in a more COVID secure way, guiding schools on how to manage where there are close contacts of positive cases. And obviously it was on the news this morning, I think, that the government has just reintroduced the requirement for masks to be worn in communal areas in secondary schools. So that now is national guidance. We've got many schools in Wokingham currently operating under what's called the contingency framework, which is what schools have to use if their numbers of cases substantially increase and it looks as though there's infections happening within the school. So we've got lots of Wokingham schools currently in that position, and those schools have regular meetings with public health and the local authority to support them through how to manage that. So we've got, in some cases where that is the case, a whole class or a whole year group might be asked to take a PCR test. And while they're waiting for the results, they may be asked to stay at home, and so there'll be remote learning happening. We've also got quite high levels of staff absence, so either staff that have tested positive themselves or they're close contacts of positive cases and they're waiting for their negative test result. And that is putting pressure on the staff that remain in schools. They're having to do quite a lot of cover for their colleagues. And we've noticed that in terms of some of the training and meetings that we run as a school improvement team haven't been quite as well attended, because I think staff are just so tired and so busy. So we're still in the school improvement team. We're only actually visiting schools in person where it's really essential. And other than that, we're having meetings remotely still. So in terms of the SACRE's work, I wish there was better news to tell you in terms of, you know, really encouraging SACRE members to arrange visits to schools. But I think, unfortunately, we're not in a position where anything has changed really in that regard. So I don't know if any of the school-based colleagues feel that I've missed anything or they'd like to add anything from their personal experience. But that would be my sort of summary of where we are.
No, that's a good summary. So the guidance is a bit woolly, that makes it harder. And you haven't really got any way of enforcing what you want to happen with regards to children staying at home if they are in contact with someone else, which is very frustrating because you can just see it whizzing around each class then.
Yeah, and I would say that there's a bit of a disconnect between parents' expectations of what we should be doing with nativities and things like that, because the world seems to be gone back to normal. But obviously, once we're in the contingency, which a lot of our schools are, I think they mentioned last Tuesday, 27 primary schools had reached the contingency thresholds. That's a lot of us that aren't able to do those things. So it's a bit disappointing for everybody, I guess.
Thank you, Emily, Philippa and Julie, just for your comments there. Does anybody have any questions for Emily? No, I don't see any hands go up. No, thank you for that. It's a really comprehensive update, and it is a shame that, like you say, so many of these things can't go ahead, but we obviously still are in the grips of this pandemic. Thank you, Emily, for that. Moving on to item 6, development plan and budget. I'm guessing this is a tag team one between Emily and Angela. I'll hand you over to Emily and Angela.
Thanks, Stephen. Angela, shall I share the agenda pack so people can be looking at the development plan while you're talking?
Yes, that's fine. Did you want me to go through the development plan first and then you talk about budget?
I think that would make most sense, if you don't mind.
That's fine, yeah, absolutely. Just wait for you to share. So that's our budget. We've got some blank pages.
Sorry, it seems to have disappeared. If you just try to start talking, Angela, I'll try and
I think you know, it's really about business as usual for the development plan, but also thinking ahead to the review of the syllabus, which is coming up in 2023. So we've already spoken about the first point in our core business, which is filling membership. So we've already had an overview of that and the efforts that are being made to make sure that we are as full and comprehensive as SACRE as possible. The core business then talks about members attending meetings, and we are good at being quorate and so on, so that's all well and good. And then we've already mentioned that the status quo at the moment doesn't really allow for SACRE members to be going out into schools, which is unfortunate, and that's something that we'll have to look at as we move forward, because obviously those visits are not possible. Moving on to onto the next page then, we're talking about the production of the annual report. So usually what we would do in this autumn meeting is share a draft of the annual report, which is more or less finished, apart from some small amendments that are suggested by members. On this occasion, we've got a new framework for the annual report that has been devised by SACRE in partnership with the Department for Education, and the annual report is being written according to that new framework now. So Emily and I and Stephen are getting our heads around that new format, which is in some ways quite different from what we're used to. The idea is that SACRE can then look at a kind of standard annual report from all the SACREs across England and identify national trends and help SACREs to be able to fulfil their statutory duties and to do the extra things that really enhance the quality of RE for pupils in schools. So we are still on schedule for the official submission of the annual report, which is required by the 30th of December. And as soon as we have a shareable version for you, then that will be circulated to members to have a look at and to approve or request amendments for. So we're reviewing the action plan, so that's what we're doing now. So we are on that, and we are still fully paid up members of SACRE and present SACRE updates at each meeting, which is coming up later on the agenda. So moving on to the next page, support for teachers of RE. and leaders of RE as well. I think this is something that is a particular strength for our SACRE. We've supported the teachers across Wokingham really comprehensively throughout the pandemic, and we continue to do so. They received resources that were made available free to them at the end of the last academic year, and training to support that has happened in the form of twilight sessions, a kind of mini festival of RE that's been really well attended, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And we're thinking really carefully and strategically about how we can bring into the training more secondary colleagues, because that is an area that we do need to improve on if we can. So we've got our primary subject leader training, and we're thinking about how we can provide good support for secondary colleagues as well, and that's all planned ready for the coming academic year. The main headlines with the hub, the Pan Berkshire hub, is that we are entering into the syllabus review. More about that later. And the Real People, Real Faith project is completed now, actually, officially, and a launch has been made available to teachers, and a recording of that as well. But there is some extra work going on that, because extra funding was obtained, and so we're in a really privileged position where we can include more faith representatives talking about diversity within religious traditions as well. So that's really great. And I think that's it for the development plan. And now Emily will talk you through the budget. But I'm happy if anybody wants to ask any questions before she does that.
Angela, I was just thinking, you're probably thinking of doing this later, but it might be good to mention the dates that we've got for the primary network meeting in the spring, and the subject leader training, and the secondary network, in case SACRE members, you know, as always, we'd love SACRE members to come along to those things. So yeah, I'm going to have to have a look at my diary. So have you got them to hand, Emily? I think, did I write? Yes, I did write them down. Where did I put them? So the secondary network is on the 17th of January. And the main reason we thought we'd do that is because we want to find out from secondary teachers what further support they would like. So that meeting's going to have a bit of an Ofsted focus, isn't it, Angela, as well as giving teachers the chance just to share what's going well, and even better if. And we've asked the RE leader from the Forest School, which recently had an Ofsted inspection, to share her experience of being inspected. So we've started to advertise that, and we're hoping we'll get good attendance from secondary schools. The primary...
Sorry to interrupt. Have you had many responses from secondary colleagues regarding that yet?
I haven't actually checked. Catherine, have you checked recently what responses we've had? The way we've done it is that Catherine has just automatically sent out the Teams invitation to all the heads of RE. Okay. And so I haven't checked how many of them have accepted it, but we'll need to check on that.
Is it worth also maybe a Julian Bushell, secondary federation, assuming, I don't know if he is the secondary federation manager, but maybe going through him as well if you haven't done already, so just so he can make the heads aware, and then that can hopefully disseminate down to those subject leads.
That's a really good idea, Stephen. Yeah, thank you.
And the other thing I was thinking of as well is I know Maiden Early 1, they had an Ofsted inspection, they had a deep dive in RS as well, so potentially it could be worth getting in contact with Sian. She's the head of department over there as well, as potentially just as another sort of guest speaker in terms of her experience. And I know they normally get really good results, and they've got quite a strong department there.
Thanks, Stephen. That's really helpful. In terms of, sorry.
Sorry, Emily. I just think it'll be interesting to see whether secondary colleagues are now wanting to have a network, because it was thought in the past that that wasn't the best way to support them. But if it's online, and you know, it's kept to, we've decided to keep it to an hour, so it's going to be hopefully, you know, short to the point but high impact, then that might be something that appeals to those colleagues now, rather than having to travel to a venue and you know, have potentially lengthy meetings. So we're really interested to see how that goes for them.
I also think with the syllabus review coming up, if we can get a network up, then actually they can do more collaborative work, especially in Key Stage 3, around sort of like sharing resources, ideas, assessment as well. And yeah, it hasn't worked in the past, but actually let's hope, and let's like you're saying, there's no traveling, it's online. I think it's definitely got potential, and hopefully our secondary colleagues, yeah, they do engage. Does anybody have any questions? No.
Shall I just share the dates of the primary things we've got happening in the spring term? So we've got the primary RE subject leader training on the 21st of March. That's 4 till 5:30 that Angela's leading. And then the following week on the 29th of March is the primary RE network meeting from 4 till 5. So if any SACRE members would like to come to any of those events, then if you just send Catherine an email, she can send you out the link.
It might also be with flagging up that tomorrow Fiona Moss is doing her early years foundation phase training as a twilight. I think, is that 4 till 5:30, Emily, tomorrow?
So it's 4 till 5, I think.
4 till 5. So if any SACRE members wanted to attend that, I'm sure they would be able to get a link from Emily or Catherine to have a look at that.
This training is, if you remember, at the end of last year, we had a very healthy budget, and it was some of the money that we decided to put aside for our colleagues, both primary and secondary, so they could attend some training sessions that were being run by Angela and her team. And if you do have the opportunity to attend, I attended the one that Angela delivered around Ofsted, and I found it was really interesting for me as a classroom practitioner. So, and I know Beth attended a couple as well. So if you do have an opportunity, I would definitely encourage you to attend. And we are in a really fortunate position that we do have a healthy budget, that Emily is very supportive, that we've got an amazing advisor in Angela, and actually what we offer our colleagues across Wokingham, I think, is a great package. I think budget updates, Emily.
Yeah, this will be very quick, I think. But yeah, I was just going to say exactly what Stephen's just said, that following the discussions we had at the last meeting about the amount that we'd carried forward from last year, we have put in place this programme of training, and every school got sent a free resource. So yeah, Wokingham schools have been really well supported by the SACRE recently. So that's now reflected in the budget, and I've put that in as special project costs. So they've had 3 extra twilight training sessions this term and a resource for every school. So you can see that the total budget plan now is 8,972, but because of the carry forward that we had from last year, we've actually got 9,600 available this year. So we've got around £600 that isn't yet budgeted for, which Angela and I are thinking, because we haven't put in place yet any support for secondary schools, and normally we would give some money to the Secondary Federation for that, to support the inset day for RE teachers, but the Secondary Federation are not having that inset day again this year. So Angela and I were thinking that depending on what secondary teachers say they would like at the network meeting in January, we could use some or all of that money perhaps to arrange some additional training sessions for secondary teachers, if SACRE members would be happy with that plan.
Thank you, Emily. Andrew, you have a question.
I do. It's referring back to when you mentioned about the Ofsted RE session that was delivered back in February. Just a little feedback that I can give you, because I was there and I went in one of the breakout rooms. There was this thing that they said there was not enough Christianity taught. Just the feedback, and you know, that they said at the session. So I don't know whether.
As in the. So are we on about the training that Angela did? It was literally about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
No. This is back in February.
Okay.
This was one of the primary, I think, the Ofsted and RE session.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's useful to know.
I'm just saying that this was a comment that came back from the group of people that were there, that they thought there wasn't enough Christianity being taught in the schools, and is that because they're not focusing on it? I can't quite remember the contents of it, but I had that written down on my notes. Okay,
thank you for sharing that. That's something Angela and myself, we can take to the hub and just say there was a sort of a couple of comments around Christianity and maybe insufficient Christianity being taught.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can share that with the with the hub for the syllabus review.
I think that's where understanding Christianity comes in, isn't it? And that was brought out to support the teaching of Christianity, and I think the worldviews pointed that out, the government review.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding Christianity goes up to Key Stage 3, I think. Anyway, moving on.
Thank you. That's useful for us to just sort of refresh our minds as well. Thank you, Julie. The other thing I was going to say as well, with that sort of £600, and we have done in the past, is people who have, within SACRE members, have done sort of small projects that have fed into the SACRE. So again, there is that opportunity that if anybody does have a project or something in mind, there is some funding available. So please do let Emily, Beth, Angela, or myself know. So my proposal, and I agree with sort of what Emily and Angela is saying in terms of the remaining £600, is we do see what the secondary colleagues want, but equally, if any of you have like a project in mind that feeds into our development plan, please do let us know, because there was funding available for that. Does anybody have any other questions on the budget, or any comments or anything they'd like to add? Just looking down the list, seeing if any hands are going up. No. Okay, thank you, Angela and Emily, for the development plan and budget update. Moving on to item 7, Angela, I don't know if there's anything you want to add on the annual report, because I think you've sort of filled in everyone at the moment that you're writing it, and we're working together on bits and bobs on that with Emily as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And SACRE members have had a copy of the new framework for the annual report. So if there's any questions regarding that, if anybody wants to either ask now during the meeting, or email Emily, and she can pass on any queries to me, then that's absolutely fine. But yeah, we have said enough on that.
And I think, I can't remember if you said, sorry, Angela, that because we haven't got another meeting between now and when we have to submit the report, we will email to members the draft report before it's submitted for you to approve it.
It's very different in some ways, I think, to what we've previously done. If I'm being honest, to our 18 million viewers, I think our previous reports, I think, have been absolutely, I think, very detailed, very eye-catching, a real pleasure to read. The new framework is very rigid. I'm going to call it how it is. It's very rigid, in my opinion, but hey, that's just my thoughts on it. Okay, just moving on. If anybody has any questions, please just do ask. If not, we'll move on to feedback from teacher networks and any training opportunities. And again, Andrew, I think you've done quite a bit of this already in the development plan, but I don't know if you have much that you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, there's a little bit to add on that. The SACRE members have had a paper on this under item 8, just to give an overview of what's been happening since the last meeting. So we have had a primary network that happens in July after our last meeting. There were 16 participants, and that was aimed mainly at the people who had missed the launch in April for one reason or another. And it was a reversioned session based on that. So we had 16 participants then, and a video was made available of the original launch to those participants and across the Wokingham area as well. So the main thing there was that teachers were shown how to access the Real People, Real Faith resources, where they are, how to find them, and the tips on how to use them. So hopefully that will have led to them being more widely used. The festival of CPD is underway. There's just one more session to go on that tomorrow, which I've already mentioned. We've had really good numbers. I think we've had from 15 to 36 participants. The Ofsted one was the most well attended, and while I'd like to think that was because it was me, I think it was more to do with the teachers wanting to get some insight into what Ofsted are looking for in RE. So there have been a variety of different sessions to support those resources that were gifted to schools in the summer term, and so they're not left on a shelf and just forgotten, and so that they actually do find a place in RE lessons. The feedback has been really positive. We haven't had any negative feedback, and some really positive feedback about how useful and valuable that training has been. So that's all really good. And we've already talked about the forthcoming training and training networking opportunities. There was one training opportunity that wasn't provided by SACRE, but it was a NATRE training opportunity in Milton Keynes, and we only had one teacher who attended that from Wokingham, but still that was an opportunity that our teachers had advertised to them and could have attended. But it was nice to see a Wokingham teacher there anyway. So that's it for the updates on the training and feedback. I don't know if Emily's got anything to add to that, or if there are any questions at all. I can see Beth's got a hand.
Yeah, Beth.
I'd just like to come in and say, excuse me, how valuable the training on Islam was from that colleague of yours, Angela. I can't remember his name, but I remember the training well. And if it's all as good as that, it is absolutely top notch. It was very interesting. Sorry?
We can't wait for it to be Lap Laylock, who's my colleague, but yeah, we try and be really as good as him if we can. So
no, it was excellent.
Ladies and gentlemen, Angela's being very modest. I attended the Ofsted one, and I found it really useful. And I think, Angela, your approach and the way you did it was very it was in a way I think everyone was able to digest things. I think sometimes we see Ofsted and we read things and we start panicking, but I think yeah, you're being very modest. Angela, your training was wonderful as well.
Oh, thank you very much, Stephen.
Are there any other questions around sort of the training offer? No. Beth, can I hand over to you just for item 9 and 10, just because I'm going to turn my camera up and say goodnight to my two little ones, just because they're about to go to bed. So item 9 is projects and 10.
Give them a hug from us too.
I will do.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Oops, I've just sent the agenda whizzing up the screen. Item 9, national updates relating to education and RE. Angela, I guess we're going to hand over to you for this as well. Is there anything coming in?
I've got SACRE projects for item 9. Is that?
No, I haven't.
Oh.
So have I. I've got SACRE projects.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong bit of paper. It's gone too far up the screen. Yeah, SACRE products, sorry.
There's not really much to say on SACRE projects at the moment. I've mentioned already that the Real People, Real Faith project with the hub is continuing. There's also the syllabus review. Those are going to be the main things that we're going to be getting up to this academic year. There has already been the conceptual understanding project, and now there is a comprehensive page on RE included in that digest as well. So that's all that's to be said on SACRE projects for now.
Shall I just very quickly, Angela, share? I've just got the document open, the conceptual understanding document, just so members get an idea of what it looks like. Is that okay, Stephen?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so this is the document which was created originally about 2 years ago, but was lacking an RE page. So the idea of it is that for every foundation subject on the curriculum, groups of teachers have got together across Wokingham to talk about what are the key concepts that we in Wokingham believe children need to understand by the end of Key Stage 2 in order to be ready for learning at Key Stage 3. And the idea is that that will help primary schools and secondary schools to plan their curriculum so that there's a really smooth transition between Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3. So every page has the national curriculum requirements, and then the second half of the page is what teachers in Wokingham believe are the really big concepts and skills that children in Wokingham should understand by the end of Key Stage 2. So it's arranged in alphabetical order by subject, and you can see that religious education is now there. And of course, rather than the national curriculum for RE, we've looked at the non-statutory national curriculum framework and also the locally agreed syllabus. And then the bottom half of the page is what Wokingham schools feel it's important in terms of core skills for children to have by the end of Key Stage 2, to know, remember and understand, and to develop knowledge and understanding of. So this is on the Wokingham Schools Hub, but I'm happy to ask Catherine to email that out to members if people would like to have a look at it in more detail.
Thank you, Emily. If we move on to, if there's no questions, item 10, the hub update, and I think there's things I think for us to start thinking about with syllabus review and all, but I'm not going to steal Angela's thunder. I'm going to hand over to Angela for this one.
Okay, as I've already said, the main things going on with the hub are the syllabus review and the Real People, Real Faith project. In terms of the syllabus review, Emily sent out an email a short while ago just to ask if everybody was happy with us still working with the hub to review a syllabus and go forward with a Pam Barcher syllabus. There is no kind of legal reason why we should do that. We could, in fact, have our own syllabus just for Wokingham if we decided that that's what we wanted. And I believe that nobody expressed any reservations about proceeding as we had planned with being part of Pam Berkshire hub to review a syllabus and to share a syllabus moving forward after 2023. So one of the things that we've proceeded to do is to survey teachers about what their views are of the current syllabus and where they want to see that syllabus go in future. Literally hot off the press today, this afternoon, just a couple of hours before the meeting, I had some results that came back. I think that the survey closed around the 18th of November. So there was a very short window really for teachers to respond. And there are around 40 respondents. It's 46 showing, but we think at least 5 of those were test responses. Out of those responses, only 8 Wokingham responses are there, and I think one of them was me as a test response. There weren't any responses from Windsor and Maidenhead, but there were 18 from Bracknell Forest, which was the highest number of respondents. So From that initial kind of sample that we've got, there seems to be an appetite for a light touch approach to looking at the syllabus, maybe just bringing it up to date with some current thinking and current developments in RE. But there is an argument that maybe we need to give teachers a bit longer to respond, and certainly what I've heard from Emily and the teachers who are present today, I think that there have been, a lot of quite unprecedented pressures on teachers, and perhaps we need to give them a few more weeks to come up with their responses. And I think, ideally we would like more of a balance between the 6 unitary authorities to proceed with the syllabus review. So that's the main thing that I wanted to share with you today, and just to kind of garner your responses, what you think we should do, whether teachers may be a bit weary of being surveyed and asked for their opinions about things. Maybe we should just leave them be and let them get on with the rest of the term till they break up for Christmas. But it would be good to hear your thoughts, so then I can take that back to the hub and have the weight of SACRE members to say this is how Wokingham feels about things, and this is how they would like to proceed in our SACRE. So really I'm opening up the floor to responses.
I'll go first, if that's all right, and then other people can jump in. My thoughts are, and they always have been, I've always said a radical overhaul of the whole syllabus. Let's be a bit more, let's bring it up to date, let's be a bit more modern. But that's just my thoughts. But I do appreciate planning a new sort of syllabus, new resources and stuff is obviously very difficult and time consuming for teachers, but then potentially the secondary network, I'm just thinking of secondary here, that might be a vehicle for doing that. And equally, I know many of our primary colleagues, they use Discovery RE, and I know that they update things, and I believe part of the license that Jan does is that she updates it for free, or she used to. I don't know if that still stands, but that's just my thoughts, everyone. I'm always all about change and trying something new. Does anybody else have any comments or anything they would like to add? Catherine.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, yeah, from my point of view from primary, we've used Discovery for quite a long time, which I know has been kind of written and tied in with the Berkshire syllabus. And actually, we've been kind of looking at that and talking about how we'd kind of like to change it up a bit, because we're finding that a lot of the teaching are kind of standalone blocks. You now teach Sikhism, you now teach Hinduism, you now teach Christianity, which that's very important. But actually, we'd like a little bit more of a multi-faith approach, as in prayer. What does that look like across the board? Worship across the board, rather than just. I think for some teachers who would say they don't always feel comfortable in teaching faith, they kind of say they might fall into more of a this is what these people do, without that depth of how, why, and a bigger picture, and how that might look, a kind of multi-faith approach. Now that might just be from our point of view, kind of our experience of Discovery. We've used it for a long time. So you then fall into, and again, it's like the syllabus, isn't it? Once you know something, you fall into that, not having to think about it too much necessarily. So sometimes changing it up, it makes more work, and it's easier to roll out a lesson, I'll be perfectly honest, at times when time is tight. But actually, if we want our pupils to go to a greater depth and really explore, then how do we change that to get that greater depth thinking?
Thank you, Catherine. Julie?
I think I would be I've got two minds going on this one, because the school I'm in has had a lot of things changed recently. We've had to rewrite the whole curriculum. We're looking at therapeutic thinking, which is rewriting our behaviour policy. We're dealing with COVID, and that is having a major impact on time and everything. So the part of me that loves RE wants to revamp it completely and look at it really interestingly and kind of build it up so that it's a really strong resource that's very up to date and modern and fits all those things. The deputy head teacher part of me that's going in my school thinks if I walk in and say we're changing RE, which is the only subject we haven't changed in the last 2 years, I think everyone will just throw their toys out of the pram and collapse in a heap of exhaustion because it's too much. We did kind of, I've mooted because we're aided, church aided rather than controlled. It means we can adapt our RE curriculum, and with advice from the diocese, I've sort of suggested or mooted the possibility of 1 or 2 units being adapted to fit our new curriculum, and even that has been met with a can't cope with any more change. So I think my head really likes the idea. My life hasn't got time to be involved myself, although I would absolutely love to be. And my deputy head hat is, if I throw more change at my staff now, I don't think it would do any of us any good. Possibly in a year or two's time, yes. But I definitely think that change needs to happen. Otherwise, if you stand still, you end up going backwards. And I think we need to change it, but we need to manage it carefully and think about that impact.
I think there were some really pertinent points in there in terms of like managing change. I agree with you. And my mind is picking up on both sort of Catherine and Julie have said, as I do think things possibly need to change modern, but then equally I do hear what you're saying in terms of pandemic, and obviously within your school you've got various sort of bits and change going on. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. Shira?
I mean, we're not sort of school teachers of the normal kind that we go from sort of school to school. But what Catherine said really resonated with me, in that when we go to school, teach about Judaism, we never just teach about Judaism. And sometimes the teachers complain, and most of the time they get it, because what we're doing is we're teaching them about RE and how to understand difference, and that there's commonality in the difference. And so when they get out of the session on Judaism, they haven't just learned about Judaism, they've learned about how to think about RE generally differently. So that then feeds into all the other RE that they do, which is why some teachers complain. They're like, we wanted you to talk about Judaism. Why are you talking about other things? And most of them get it. But I mean, that is a really good idea. But I don't know, most teachers would have the capacity. That's like really high level kind of teaching. It's a really good idea to sort of bring that in as like an optional thing, that if you really want to really excel, bring this into your teaching, and here's how you can do this in this unit and that unit. Here's how you can bring in a more multi-faith perspective on teaching about how to look at things from different points of view. For those teachers that are I mean, my husband's a rabbi. I mean, very few people are capable of teaching at that level. Most RE teachers probably wouldn't be able to, but it's great if they can.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any?
I think it's worth keeping in mind that the syllabus review is due in 2023, so it wouldn't be an immediate change to the syllabus, and also there is a year's grace for implementation as well, so it's not going to be something that's immediately demanded of teachers. There's also there's also to consider the fact that SACREs can ask for a year to delay their syllabus review, and you know, under the circumstances that might be wise, and it is something that has been discussed at the hub, but it's been felt that we need to proceed and go ahead with a review in 2023 as planned. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, and it is very it gives us a good insight really to hear teachers' points of view articulated in a meeting like this, because you know we all want to have great RE in front of every pupil in Wokingham, but we also need to bear in mind that you know, teachers' well-being is really important as well. So and I think that is being considered by the hub as we proceed with this review.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments or thoughts they would like to share? Just going down the list. I don't see any hands being raised. Angela, I don't know if you, Emily.
Sorry, Stephen. Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't know if anyone has a view on Angela's question about would it be helpful to suggest to the hub that we reopen the teacher survey for another period of time, or do we not think we would get many more teachers completing it anyway? I don't know if anyone has a view about that Angela could take to the hub.
I'm in two minds personally on this one. So I was one of the teachers that did complete it. I think on one hand, I think this is a busy term. Obviously, there's this variant of concern going around that's on sort of on everyone's kind of minds at the moment. We don't know what the next few weeks are going to look like. Would you get many responses? I don't know. But then equally, as teachers, I think, or I know at least my teams that I work across, we're creatures of habits. How many would actually say, yeah, let's change something, because it is easy just to pick up what we have done in the past, and it's easy to run with that. But then equally on the other, I personally feel ultimately though, there is no harm in reopening it and gauging a bit more feedback. And if it's open for a couple more weeks and we get another 5 responses, at least that's another 5 responses that we can say, look, actually, when we did get to consultation, this is what we got. Those are my thoughts. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts they'd like to share. David?
I think it's worth it. Oh, go on. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I asked the question, yeah, if you've got 2 weeks more until you need to look at the data you've got, you might as well open it for those 2 weeks. It's just how that impacts on getting the results out and things like that. But I wouldn't think you'll get many more, because people have passed it on, and as has been said, there is so much happening at the moment. It's Christmas, besides COVID and everything else, that there isn't very much time to fill in another form, and what's the point? But if you've got 2 weeks to open it, you might as well leave it open for 2 weeks and say, hey, you know, even if you just get one more person, that's one more person. So that's a positive in some ways.
I think we're fortunate that we do have time on our side with this at the minute. Julie, you were going to add something.
I think I was probably going to say it's worth opening it, but I'm not convinced you'll get many responses. But
Yep.
it doesn't cost any more to open it. It doesn't take too much more in time, so you might as well. But I usually reply to any surveys that are sent in, because I know what it's like trying to get responses to them, and even I've given up now because I've run out of hours.
Thank you. Philippa?
I was just going to say that there's 2 stages, because it came to the head at mailbox, and it depends whether the head passed it on. I did pass it on to my teacher. I don't know whether she did, my lead in RE. I don't know whether she did it or not. But, you know, I think, again, there's the head emails are being quite swamped. So I don't know if you've got email addresses of the people that regularly attend the network meetings or something like that.
Yeah, Philippa, I think it came to you because you're listed as our contact for your school. So I think we need to update for your school. But Catherine did send the link out to her RE contacts list.
Sorry, so, I just assumed it's head. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think as well, I'm just trying to think other ways potentially we could reach people across Wokingham. I guess things like, it's green sheets just for vacancies, or do you have news on there as well? That's my ignorance of, does that even exist in Wokingham, Emily, anymore, green sheets?
Most people read the education news, don't we, that comes out once a week. I think that's probably the best place, because I forward that to the staff.
Yeah. And then I don't know, again, things like social media accounts, just as potential ways to try and get more responses. I think, Angela, the long and short of it is what we're saying is reopen it. If we get a few more responses, all the better. And it's just more sort of when we go back to consultation. So that's our thoughts, I guess, at Wokingham.
I'll put those thoughts forward to the hub leaders who are looking after the survey and see what comes from that.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments regarding the syllabus review or reopening the survey? I don't think, no. Okay, thank you. Andrew, do you have anything else you'd like to add on the hub updates? No, thank you. Okay, so if we move on to item 11, national updates relating to education and RE.
Okay, so I think that will be me. I've given everybody the updates as part of the papers. I'm not going to read out every update because it's, you know, the time's getting on, and I'm sure you can have a read for yourselves. But just some of the main things that have come up since the last meeting. There's been a lot of research going on into public perception of RE. So Culham St Gabriel's have done some research and surveying of their own, actually, and have found that the public perception of RE is actually really strong, really good. And the new government minister for school standards in England has acknowledged that studying RE is good in a range of careers, and that was in response to an article in the British Medical Journal, which two medical students contributed an article to say that their study of humanities and specifically mentioning RE helped immensely with them getting onto a medical course, and also has made them develop into better doctors in their opinion as a result. So there's been a call for public a strategy for public examinations, because there are falling numbers of entrants for GCSE RE, but A-level entries are looking strong. There's still the Spirited Arts competition run by NatRe that we could encourage Wokingham schools to participate in. I don't think we've had a Wokingham winner yet, so that's something really really good opportunity for schools. Lots of themes that really engage learners. Just skipping forward. Looking at the networking opportunities for teachers. Applications for Farmington scholarships are open at the moment. Amazing opportunity for teachers to get up to 30 days cover for being out of the classroom to do some research for the benefit of RE for pupils. There is the Strictly RE conference that's going ahead on the last weekend of January. So that's going to be a number of different events in the week leading up, and it's all going to be online, and then a weekend of RE CPD as well. So it'd be good to encourage teachers to participate. It's the biggest national conference for RE that we know of, I think, and I don't think there is another one that we don't know of. There are some pointers there towards resources, Buddhist resources, and also Kate Christopher, one of my former colleagues, is looking for some help from teachers to develop some of those resources, and a number of things for teachers and pupils to access on worldviews and specific religions as well. We've already talked about the Festival of RE, CPD, and the Inspiring RE conference. We did have a Wokingham teacher there, and the Real Faith, Real People project has been covered as well. So they're the national and local updates. Shall I go straight on to the SACRE updates as well, Stephen?
Yeah, so we should run them together.
Yeah, we should maybe, yeah. We've talked about a lot of this anyway. The new framework for the annual reports. Emily and I are also talking about a new framework for SACRE self-evaluation, so there'll be more news on that in the spring meeting. So watch this space. The AGM and conference is hopefully going to take place face to face this year, and that's on the 23rd of May. I would usually go along to represent the SACRE, but I think, Emily, we do have funding for members to attend as well. So would you want expressions of interest for that to be emailed to you?
Yeah, if people could let Catherine know. I mean, if people know now, they could just type in the chat, but otherwise email Catherine or myself. Yeah, thanks, Angela. So
it's going to be hopefully a nice day in a lovely hotel in Birmingham, with a lunch as well. So that's you know, all to play for, isn't it? So that should be good. And there's an update on the West Hill award winners as well. So the SACREs who have got that award, and the projects that are going on. If you just have a little look through there, and if there are any questions or any comments to raise now, then I'm happy to answer or discuss. And if anybody wants to pop an email to us, we can answer questions on those SACRE updates as well for you.
Thank you, Angela. Does anybody have any immediate questions or comments for Angela?
Just to add, Stephen, that all those items that are relevant to teachers, we've shared in Education News and also sent via email to our RE contacts list. So teachers have had all that information.
Thank you, Emily and Angela. That brings us up to item 13, any other business. I didn't receive anything prior to the meeting. I don't know if Beth, Emily, Angela or Catherine, if you received anything. If anybody does have any business or anything they'd like to share, please just pop your hands up. Just have a look down the list. No. Dates of the next meeting. It's wrong on the meeting pack. So it says date of the next meeting, Monday the 7th of June and then Monday the 20th of June. We don't have 2 meetings in June, fear not. I think that should be Monday the 7th of March.
Correct. Hooray, you win the prize.
Woo. So the next meeting's Monday the 7th of March.
Yep.
Emily, any thoughts or any ideas what the local authority is? Is it virtual, face-to-face? Where are you guys at the minute?
We are planning all our spring term meetings to be online. Okay. Just, I mean, partly from the point of view that it makes planning quite difficult if you're always thinking, shall we do this meeting online? Or in a way, it's easier just to decide in advance that for the next term, you're either going to be in person or online. So we've gone for online. I mean, we could review nearer the time, or we could just decide now that we
just follow suit with the local authority. If that's what you're doing, then I think it's probably prudent to follow what the local authority are doing. So if we say March the 7th will be online, equally we'll have more of an idea on where we're at with COVID and any other variants of concern. So if everyone's okay with that, if we say the March meeting will be virtual, in some ways it's a little bit easier for people because they can log in at home and then we can make a decision about the summer where we'll know where we're at. That's it for the main meeting, and then I'll obviously ask confidential things, but I'm just going to ask Callum to stop webcasting to our 18 million viewers around the world, if that's all right, Callum.